Hey guys, Liam here. It's been a while. If you notice I got my glasses on, I'm going to read you something here that I think is pretty important. A lot of things bugging me, and I haven't really taken to the video waves or whatever you call them to talk too much about this stuff. But I'm really, to sum it up in a single sentence, I'm tired of the damn lies. There's so many lies being told these days that it's just unbelievable. And so I thought I would go back to the source document here about what our government is supposed to be doing. It's called, you can see, I carry a copy of, I think it's backwards on the video, but I carry a copy of the Constitution of the United States of America in my pocket every single day. This one's kind of worn because it's gotten a lot of use. Time to order a new one. Which you can do by going to like Levin for Hillsdale or Sean for Hillsdale or one of those sites, and they'll send you a free copy of this. And I think everybody ought to have one, and everybody ought to read it. And if you don't refer to it daily like I do, then that's fine, but you really ought to have this, because this is like the owner's manual for the United States of America. And so I want to talk a little bit about what the government should and should not be involved in. And you know, the founders or the framers or whatever you want to call them, they created this document to constrain the government, not the people. This is to protect the people from the government, not the other way around. And so that means that this document defines what the government should, the federal government, when I refer to the government, I'm talking about the federal government, what the federal government should and should not be doing. And in Article 1, the very first section of the Constitution, they outline this. And in Article 1, Section 8, let me get over to the Section 8, they start talking about what the government should and should not be doing, or should be doing. And basically, if it's not enumerated as to what they should be doing, then that means they shouldn't be doing it. It means that the states should be doing that, because we have a thing called the 10th Amendment that talks about what the state, it says. And before we go into the Article 8, let's talk about the 10th Amendment for just a second, because the 10th Amendment is one of my favorite amendments. Obviously, the First Amendment is important and crucial, and the Second Amendment, it helps ensure all the other amendments. But the 10th Amendment, or as they've designated in the Constitution, Amendment X, or Amendment 10, it says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So basically that means that if they did not specifically outline a responsibility or a power to the federal government in this document, then that means that that power or that responsibility is retained by the state governments, or you the people, we the people, okay? We created this federal government. The states created the federal government, not the other way around. So the states should be the ultimate authority on things. Like, for instance, I haven't searched for it, but I don't think the word murder appears in this document. And you know why that is? Because this document doesn't govern whether or not murder is legal in the United States. That's a state responsibility, not a federal responsibility in general. So let's read what Article 1, Section 8 has to say about what the federal government's responsibilities are. And it says, the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imports, and excises shall be uniform throughout the states. And then they go into an enumeration of what the federal government should be able to do. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. Well, we know they're doing that. They've done that really well over the past 200 years. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes. So basically, their job is to like make sure that commerce is fair throughout the United States, throughout the various states, and also with the Indian tribes that we've made treaties with, and foreign countries, of course. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. This is a big one that's in the news these days. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization. That's immigration, folks. How naturalization occurs, who's allowed to immigrate, how all that process works. That's the federal government's responsibility, which they've been shirking ridiculously in the past few years. To coin money, to regulate the value thereof and a foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. So the government is supposed to say what an ounce is, what a pound is, and what the value of a dollar is, or what is acceptable as a currency of exchange. Well, they screwed that up with Bretton Woods 1 and 2, and when we came off the gold standard, but I won't really go into that. But anyway, that the government and the government alone has the authority to coin money. To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. So if you're passing counterfeit money, the federal government can come after you. Secret Service typically handles that. To provide for the to establish the post offices and the post roads. Okay. Deliver the mail. To promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive rights to their respective writings and discoveries. Patents. Okay, they're responsible for the regulation and the issuance and protection of patents. To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. So all the federal courts that have been created throughout the years, okay, they have the authority to create that. That's here in the Constitution. So to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court being the exception. The Supreme Court was created by the Constitution. So the Congress, as they refer to the quote unquote the federal government in this document, the Congress is authorized to create inferior courts to the Supreme Court. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the laws of nations. To enforce international law in the United States' territorial and extraterritorial waters, and to prevent piracy therein. Pretty straightforward. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. So, contrary to popular belief, the president cannot declare war on another country. It takes an act of Congress. The federal government has to act on that. To raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. So what that means is, yeah, they can fund the Pentagon or whatever, the Department of Defense, which was not covered by this document, was created much later in 1947. But they alone can raise armies and appropriate money to support those armies. But that budget shall not be longer than 2 years. And then there's subtext underneath this paragraph. It says they raise that money for a period no longer than 2 years to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government, and I'm flipping the page here, and regulation of the land and naval forces. Okay, so that's what the department that was later created, the Department of Defense, is responsible for, and that's what that budget can be used for. So now back on the major things that the government can do. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. So a president can't just declare martial law. That has to be an act of Congress. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Folks, what they're talking about here when they say militia, that's the National Guard. So basically what they're saying is the federal government can call the National Guard into action, but really it's at the permission of the state governments, because the state governments are in charge of initiating, maintaining, and funding the National Guard. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles as may by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of government of the United States, and to execute like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the state shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. They're talking about the District of Columbia. Okay, a couple of states, Maryland and Virginia, whatever, got together and they said, okay, we'll give you this land, and now it's designated as the District of Columbia, and that'll be, the seat of our capital, of our national government, federal government. And to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Folks, I just read to you all the things that the United States Constitution empowers the federal government to do. Some things that were missing that are in the news lately, okay? Nowhere in this document does it say that the federal government has any authority or power over your personal health. The federal government has no authority or power over the education of school children. The federal government has no authority or power over determining whether, and this is going to be controversial, but whether a pregnant woman, because those are the only people that can be pregnant, a pregnant woman has a baby or has an abortion. There is no inherent right anywhere in this document to killing a baby or to having an abortion, or prohibiting the killing of a baby or prohibiting an abortion. That's not the federal government's job. The federal government has no authority in that area, period. So the Department of Education really shouldn't exist. The Department of Energy shouldn't really exist. Now, you know, there are all kinds of departments that I don't think really should exist, because those rights and powers were not empowered to the federal government by this document. Okay? And the outlining powers and authorities and responsibilities in this document are the only thing the federal government should be doing. And if they would only do that, they might be a lot better at their jobs. But that's not what's happening these days. They are involved in every aspect of everyone's life, whether we like it or not. And it's time for those of us who granted, as it says in one of our founding documents, the consent of the governed. It's time for us to revoke our consent. It's time for us to say, you know what, butt out. Okay? That's why there's all this panic around the Supreme Court about to overturn Roe versus Wade and all that. Well, first of all, they're not overturning that law. If they do in fact overturn it, it's not based on whether or not they believe women should be able to get an abortion or not. It's that it was written based on faulty legal precedent. So they're overturning the law. If they overturn the law, they're basing it on the fact that it shouldn't have been decided the way it is in the first place. And anybody that has any argument with that, who says, "Oh, stare decisis," and that's settled law and all this kind of stuff, then you know, so was the issue of slavery, so was the issue of segregation, so was the issue. There's countless other things that were quote unquote settled law, stare decisis, whatever you want to call it, that subsequent Supreme Courts came and said, you know what, that was wrong, and we need to change that. And so all these people freaking out about this abortion thing, It's like there's nowhere in this document does it say the federal government has any involvement in that. There's no inherent right to an abortion. There's no protection of a right to an abortion. And by the way, this document does not grant rights. Okay? This document is designed to protect rights, not grant them. The rights outlined in this document are given to those of us, as natural-born human beings, by our Creator, whatever you believe that is. What this document is designed to do is to prevent the government from encroaching on those rights. And so, talk a little bit about this pending SCOTUS decision. They're not going to prevent that decision is not going to prevent anyone from killing a baby. What is going to happen out of that is the states who actually regulate things like defining what murder is and what the penalties for murder is, those states will decide how they're going to handle that. And there'll be states like California where, they'll probably decide, hey, you can kill a baby anytime you want, anytime, up to age 16 or whatever, I'm being facetious, of course, but they might decide that, you can kill a kid anytime you want to. And then there are other more conservative states, like those in the deep south, perhaps maybe Mississippi or some of the others where I'm from, that they may say, you know what, it's never appropriate to kill a baby, at any point from conception on. And you know what? It's the right of the people who live in those states to decide what they want those rules to be. That's how this document, this declaration or this Constitution was developed by the states to put limits on the federal government, not the other way around. The states are in the driver's seat here, and that's the way it should be. Because if you want to live in a state where it's legal to kill babies, fine, move there, vote there, continue to elect officials who believe the same way as you. But if you don't want to live in a state where it's legal to kill a baby, or and I'm using this as an extreme example, but if you want to live in a state where the general people or the general population say, we don't want baby killers in this state, then fine, move to that state and vote in people who don't like baby killers. That's the beauty of our country, and the way our country was formed, and the structure that we have. One of the things I think about all the time is that we call our founding fathers, in some parlance, we call them framers, the framers. And you know what? That's exactly what they were, because this document is a framework. Okay, it doesn't outline every single thing that people can or cannot do in our country. It doesn't outline, but what it does is it provides a framework, okay, for what our federal government should and should not do. And basically, anything that's not outlined in this document, our federal government should not be doing. There are countless things that our federal government is involved in that is not outlined in this document, and they should not be doing. And people might say, oh, well, yeah, that means you're a libertarian, you're what? Call me what you will. But if it's not outlined in this document, the Constitution of the United States, the federal government should not be involved in it. They should not be doing it. Those things are up to the states or the people to decide, as it says in one of my favorite amendments that I read to you earlier, and I'm going to read to you again. It's called the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. Of all of the things, all of the words written in this document, I'm not sure there can be anything more clear. And anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge advocate of the First and Second Amendments. But the 10th Amendment is so fundamentally clear that anybody who can read and understand the English language knows what that means. if they're being honest, which is sadly far too few people these days, because most people these days are not honest, because everybody wants to lie to push their own agenda. But I would encourage you, if you don't have a copy of this document, if you haven't read it in a while, please go get a copy and please read it. And if you know, there are plenty of organizations that will send you one of these for free. All you have to do is provide them your name and mailing address. And by the way, I make no money off of any of this. I don't make any kind of finder's fee or anything to refer you to places like Hillsdale College, you know, where there's Sean for Hillsdale, SEAN for Hillsdale, or Levin, LEVIN for Hillsdale, where you can go and request a copy of this document, and they'll gladly send you one. You know, and that's a college that accepts no federal money of any kind. It's all based on private donations. So if you want to make a donation to Hillsdale College, I certainly encourage you to do so. I do so regularly. I love that place because they're one of the very few educational institutions left in America that's actually teaching about the wonders of our country and the great things about this, and the brilliance of this document that I'm holding in my hand here, which I realize is appearing in backwards on the video. But you know, I'll shut up. I hope you watch this whole video, and I hope you got a little bit of something out of it, because you know, if we look at what our federal government should be doing, it's, you know, it's a very limited set of what was that, 15 things. Section, you know, I'll say it again. It's Article 1, Section 8, and it talks about what the Congress, they refer to the Congress, which means the federal government in their parlance, what it should or should not be doing. And I'm going to count them right quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 things. I think that's what I said earlier, that there's 15 things that the government should be doing. 15 things, and 15 things only should our federal government be doing. All the rest of the things that we worry about, traffic laws and, you know, laws against murder, or, you know, or fraud, or any of that other kind of things, that any kind of white collar or you know, crimes, those are all should be handled by the states. You know, and the state should define, and the reason that is, and I'll close on this, but the reason that is that keep in mind that this Constitution was written by people selected by their quote-unquote constituencies or whatever to come up with a framework for our country. The people who wanted these people to represent them, they were already here. They already had these quote-unquote states. They already had these communities, and so they sent their delegates to the Continental Congress to form to write this Constitution. And it wasn't the other way around. The big government didn't exist first, and then it decided what it was going to do, and then it pushed all that down onto the people. It was the other way around. The people created our government, and that's what makes us unique in the history of mankind, and what makes us great. And we need to get back to those values and the adherence to this document. So I'll stop rambling. If you watched this far, I really appreciate it. Like and subscribe if you got anything out of this. I'm going to be doing some other things. Probably one of my next videos will probably be another unboxing. I got great results great response to the unboxing of the Samsung Book 2 Pro 360 that I did a month or so ago. And I've got a watch or two that I've acquired that I'm going to do an unboxing on, and show folks how to put a NATO strap on a watch or whatever that might be helpful to some people. So you know, I'm kind of jumping around to things that I think people might be interested in, but But this video tonight might be one of the most important ones I've ever done. And I hope you'll take it to heart, and I hope you'll think about what I said here, and I hope you'll go out and there's plenty of resources to get a copy of this Constitution of the United States. Just read it. It's not a long document. Read our Declaration. Neither of these are long documents. It's not going to take you more than a few minutes to read them. But do yourself a favor and read these documents, and then maybe you'll see how just how messed up things are these days, and how we really need to get back to these founding documents. So again, thanks for watching, and God bless you guys, and God bless the United States of America.